This is your daily Facts Matter update, and I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. And now let's begin today's discussion by talking about Dr. Fauci. Just yesterday, during an interview over on CNBC, Dr. Fauci made a statement in which he implied that Americans will need to take more and more COVID vaccines. Here's specifically what Dr. Fauci said after he was asked by the host about how many more shots will be needed. The answer is, we don't know. I mean, that's it. It is likely that we're not done with this when it comes to vaccines. Now, what's really interesting to note is that his comments, they dovetailed perfectly with the official line from Pfizer. That's because just a single day before Dr. Anthony Fauci made those comments, the head of Pfizer, Mr. Albert Bourla, well, he had an interview on CBS's Face the Nation, wherein he said this, quote, "Variants are coming, and Omicron was the first one that was able to evade in a skillful way the immune protection that we were giving. But also, the duration of the protection of the vaccines doesn't last very long. So what we are trying to do, and we are working very diligently, is that we are trying to make a vaccine that will not only protect against all variants, including Omicron, but also something that can protect for at least a year." At least a year. You know, to be frank with you, these comments were rather amazing to hear just for the fact that the vaccine, which was once labeled as something like a panacea by the media in this country, is now being openly discussed by the head of Pfizer as something that just doesn't last very long. Regardless, in the interview, Mr. Bourla then continued to specifically discuss the fourth dose, meaning the second booster shot. Here's what he said, quote, "It is necessary, a fourth booster. Right now, the protection that we are getting from the third shot, it is good enough. Actually, quite good for hospitalizations and deaths, but it's not that good against infections. And it also doesn't last very long. We have just submitted those data regarding the fourth shot to the FDA. Then we'll see what the experts will also say." Now, I really want to highlight the change in messaging here, because about a year ago, when the vaccine rollout program was at its height and when the vaccine mandates throughout the entire country were just beginning to go into effect, well, you already know what type of period of time that was. Questioning anything regarding the vaccines would have you branded as a fringe conspiracy theorist. Even when Joe Biden himself was publicly making claims like these, quote, "People vaccinated for COVID-19 do not spread the disease to anyone else." Those comments, by the way, were made just 4 short months ago in December. And you really couldn't question them when they were made, at least not on social media, because your posts would be flagged for promoting vaccine hesitancy and pushed down, if not outright removed. And so, beyond these new comments from the CEO of Pfizer, as well as from Dr. Fauci, it was beyond interesting to watch an interview with Dr. Rochelle Walensky, who is the current director of the CDC. And this interview came from about 2 weeks ago when she was visiting the Washington University School of Medicine, because in that interview, she explained how the messaging from the CDC might have come as a result of too little caution and too much optimism. Here's what she said.
I think I can tell you where I was when the CNN feed came that it was 95% effective on the vaccine. So many of us wanted to be hopeful. So many of us wanted to say, okay, this is our ticket out, right? Now we're done. So I think we had perhaps too little caution and too much optimism for some good things that came our way. I really do. I think all of us wanted this to be done. Nobody said waning when you know, oh, this vaccine's going to work. Oh, well, maybe it'll work, it'll wear off.
Now, really consider her comments in light of the fact that tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Americans lost their jobs due to the vaccine mandates that were rolled out, in large part due to the CDC's recommendations, as well as the amazing amount of businesses that were shut down due to the lockdowns, the strain on mental health, the rise in suicides and opioid deaths that were due to the lockdowns, again, due to the recommendations from the CDC as well as from Dr. Fauci. It's kind of amazing if you think about it. Regardless, there is now a push by federal lawmakers to prevent these types of situations from happening again. For instance, Senator Rand Paul, he recently introduced a piece of legislation which would altogether eliminate Dr. Fauci's position. And in a prepared statement, Senator Rand Paul said that he's doing this, introducing this piece of legislation, because according to him, it's a necessary step to help prevent a health dictatorship. Here's specifically what he said, quote, "No one person should have unilateral authority to make decisions for millions of Americans. One of my goals was to ensure that ineffective, unscientific lockdowns and mandates are never foisted on the American people ever again." Now, what he's referencing there specifically is the fact that Dr. Fauci advocated very strongly for strict lockdown measures during the pandemic, including things like shutting down quote-unquote non-essential businesses, as well as imposing forced masking on children. Now, this particular piece of legislation that's being pushed by Senator Rand Paul, it was introduced as an amendment to the government funding bill, and if it gets adopted, it would effectively turn the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases into 3 separate institutes, with one focusing on allergic diseases, one focusing on infectious diseases, and one focusing on immunological diseases. And so, the agency that Dr. Fauci is currently the head of would effectively no longer exist as a single entity, and then Dr. Fauci's current position, it would be replaced by 3 different directors, the 3 directors of those 3 new agencies, each of which would take a portion of the responsibilities that Dr. Fauci currently has. And then furthermore, these new directors, they would be appointed by the president, they would need to be confirmed by the Senate, and then they would only be able to serve a single 5-year term. And just for your reference, Dr. Fauci himself, he was appointed to his current post during the presidency of Ronald Reagan. He was never confirmed by the Senate, and he has been in his position for the past 36 years. However, according to Senator Rand Paul, this type of situation, wherein you have an unelected government official who remains in office for dozens of years, has become untenable. Here's specifically what he said on this matter. The amendment, if passed, will create accountability and oversight into a taxpayer-funded position that has largely abused this power and has been responsible for many failures and misinformation during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, we here at the Epoch Times, we did reach out to Dr. Fauci's office for comment, but we have yet to hear back. Regardless, if you'd like to read more about this new bill or anything related to the discussion of vaccine efficacy, I'll throw all those links into the description box below this video for you to check out. And also, I should mention that about 2 days ago, we published a phenomenal episode of Facts Matter, wherein I sat down and I interviewed Dr. Peter McCullough, who is a cardiologist as well as the chief medical advisor for the Truth for Health Foundation, and we discussed the astronomical, that's in his words, number of deaths following vaccination, as well as how the spike protein, at least according to new data, lingers in the body post-vaccination and potentially weakens a person's immune system. Now, for obvious reasons, this episode will not be on YouTube, so you can find it over on epicTV, which is our awesome no censorship video platform, where not only you can find this phenomenal episode, but also we had another interview with Dr. Robert Malone, as well as a ton of other phenomenal content. Even we have short movies and documentaries on there that, due to the massive censorship that you're seeing on platforms like YouTube and others, well, we just cannot publish here. I'll throw a link to both epicTV as well as that interview with Dr. Peter McCullough. It'll all be in the description box below this video for you to check out, which is that same little description box that is right below that like button, which I also hope you take a quick moment to smash.